A very important topic or concept in many religious traditions is the idea of forgiveness. But the question I have is, does forgiveness have value for someone who's more non religious or is more of a logical or scientific type thinker? Let's talk about that. Hello, my name is Rick Sundstrom, and I want to welcome you to Journey Beyond Belief. The topic for today is forgiveness. Does it have value for the more non religious type of person? And in short, I'm going to say, yes, it does. Well, let's talk about it. I mean, obviously, if you forgive somebody who does something wrong to you, right, and you go through this process where the relationship is restored, you can look at it and say, hey, well, the person who did the wrong thing, well, they benefited. But how did the person that did the forgiving, how did they benefit from that? Well, there's a number of benefits to forgiveness. For one thing, there's health benefits to it, right? Anger has this very interesting effect upon the human body, right? When you're angry about something, it triggers stress hormones. It's like the fight or flight response, right? Your rate of breathing increases, your heart rate increases, the body sends out an extra jolt of sugar so that you have energy. And it's great for short-term emergency situations, but if you hold grudges and you're always having this constant stress affecting your body, the health effects of that on a long term are just not good. It gives you increased risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, increased risk of stroke. Your immune system is affected and you get sick easier. You can have digestive issues, insomnia, depression, and anxiety, all kinds of really negative types of things. Not to mention health effects, but it also carries negative social effects, right? If you're a person that gets angry and you hold grudges, pretty soon you start to get a reputation and people look at you and say, ooh, they're a hothead. I'm not sure, I don't know if I want to be around that person. And then you start, it maybe affects your relationships, and that can be a problem as well. So obviously forgiveness then brings you more positive types of health effects, right? A person who is more emotionally mature doesn't have that stress and then has all the positive benefits instead of the negative benefits. Well, in addition to that, right, it does help with the social situations like I was talking about. See, because relationships are really important to human beings, whether they're family relationships or friends or maybe romantic type of relationships. They're a vital part of the mental and physical health of a person, and they're kind of the glue that holds society together, right? So forgiveness is huge for that because healthy relationships, healthy families, it makes for a healthy society. It makes for a healthy person. And it's just win, 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 right? Not to mention the fact that there's a concept that's called what goes around comes around, right? What comes around goes around, or whatever. What goes around comes around, that kind of a thing. It's the idea of if you are willing to forgive other people, then they are going to remember that, and they'll be more likely to forgive you when you do something wrong. They'll be more likely to cut you some slack if you're a person that has cut them some slack in the past. So it's kind of a give and take type of a thing, right? So that's really good. Now, forgiveness also can help people learn from their mistakes. Now, granted, you can learn from your mistakes if you make a mistake and the person cuts you out of their life. And yeah, you can learn from that, obviously. But how much better to learn from it is if you can go through the process of forgiveness, you learn how to build back trust, right? Because that is definitely a valuable skill to learn. Because if you lie to someone or do something that's harmful to them, that person now has been injured in some way, and they don't trust you. You're not safe anymore. But through that process of forgiveness, you then go through the process of earning that trust back, and the relationship is restored. And it's a positive experience because you learn positive skills to earn back the trust of that person, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing all the way around. Now, those are the positive things, but can forgiveness be negative as well? And I think, yes, it is possible. One of the things to me that's troubling about forgiveness, sometimes in more of a religious context, is a lot of times it finds its way into being more of a commandment. And when something's a commandment, it just becomes like this blanket statement where, well, you just always forgive everything. And in one sense, that's not a bad idea to have, I mean, but it's really when that becomes that type of a principle, it becomes like this black and white type of thing, and relationships and emotions and things, it's a lot more nuanced than that. Maybe there can be degrees of forgiveness or things like, for example, what happens when you run into relationships that are dysfunctional or abusive, or people that are just plain flat out toxic? Now, should those relationships be restored? Not always. There are definitely relationships that are unhealthy and should be eliminated. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't work on forgiveness at all. I mean, obviously, I think it is still healthy to process the anger, whether it's through counseling or talking about it or trying to get to the place, because you do need to get to the place where you're not wanting to hurt that person, where you're not constantly angry about that person and always wanting to strike back, because that's not healthy for you. So you do need to learn to process the emotions, to process the feelings of anger, to process the hurt that person caused you. You do need to healthily go through that. But in some cases, that forgiveness process then does not extend to learning to earn back trust and restoring the relationship. It's a partial level of forgiveness, so to speak. Let's take for example now. This might be a topic that could trigger some people, and I apologize for that. But let's say it's a classic example would be like an abusive relationship. If someone does something that physically or psychologically is abusive to you, in my opinion, that's a point when the relationship needs to end. Now, you can maybe deal with, like I said, the processing the hurt, processing the anger, doing what you need to do that, because that's healthy for you. But it should be done from a distance, and that relationship needs to end. And I can tell you from experience, even in what we can say in these times, these real partisan type times where there's lots of hatred and lots of stuff going on in the political realm and things, there are some people that have some kind of unreasonable opinions about things, and they tend to be very angry and toxic kind of people. And while I may try my best not to hold feelings of anger and grudges towards them and all that stuff, I'd just as soon not enter into relationships with them, not be friends with them, and kind of avoid them and keep them out of my life because they're toxic. That can happen. Okay, well, anyway, that's a good representation, I think, of the value and maybe some of the potential negative points of forgiveness. Why don't you let me know what you think about forgiveness? Either put it down in the comments below, or if you'd like, we do have a Facebook group called Journey Beyond Belief. And there's a link to that down in the description. It is a private group, so when you click on that link, you'll have to request permission to join it, and I'll let you in. And why don't you post something on there and let me know what you think about forgiveness, or a time you've forgiven a person and it was valuable in your life and it benefited you, or maybe there's a toxic relationship that you had to remove, or whatever. I mean, just let me know. I'd like to hear about it. Anyway, again, I thank you very much for watching this video. If you would, please hit that like button or subscribe subscription so that you can hear all the other wonderful ideas that I have to bring to you. But once again, I'd like to thank you for watching Journey Beyond Belief, and I'll see you next time.